What's up, guys? This is Jake Parker. This is the first episode in a series I'm doing called Let's Talk Comedy. So my idea initially was to make some sort of a documentary about comedians, about the comedic process, about comedy in a small town here in Omaha. It kind of turned more into something that I want to just do in short little snippets, but essentially the idea is talking to comedians that are friends of mine, bringing up questions like what got you started with comedy, who are your influences, what are your influences, what are your career goals with comedy, what do you do to make money, what's your day job, why do you love comedy? And I think these sort of questions will just spark really interesting conversations. I'm personally really fascinated with the comedic process and the comedian's brain, just the artistry of it all, and what gets people impassioned to do something that most people aren't really now or probably ever going to make tons of money at, but it is something that is, like I said, so impassioned, so much just a thing that you can do that's therapeutic, that helps you make connections and make friends, that gives you an outlet to be creative and express yourself. I love getting into the thought process of all that. So that's what I want to do with this. Every video I'm going to release is going to include some snippets of interviews I did with friends of mine, and then a few snippets of them doing bits on stage. And before every video, I just want to take a few minutes and kind of talk about all the comedians and the things that they had to say. So in this video, Robert Davies, Richie Belgrave, and Ethan Abramson were featured. Robert talked a lot about the therapeutic aspect of comedy. He talked about how when you get on stage and talk about things that are troubling to you or just that you've been thinking about bouncing around in your head, that can be very cathartic and that can be very freeing. I feel the same way. I feel like when I do comedy, I'm trying to do comedy on things that are important or mean something, even if it's just in the fact that it's something that I've thought a lot about and something that I want to flesh out. And a lot of times you'll notice that people will really go to a dark place with comedy. They'll go and they'll talk about things that are not typically brought up. And this is something that Richie brought up as well, but you can just talk about wild shit when you're up on stage doing comedy. And I think that one of the things that's fascinating about stand-up to me is it's really an avenue where you can talk about things that you normally wouldn't talk about in a day-to-day setting because you use this guise of comedy. I think that having that cushion of, oh, I'm saying this in a funny way, I'm joking about this, gives you permission to go to dark places. And why that's okay and why that's comforting and a good thing for people is everybody has these dark thoughts. Everybody has these dark moments. I've talked to a lot of comedians, either personally or just heard them say things on stage about suicide, drug and alcohol use, failed relationships, mistakes they've made, regrets they've had. And because these are all things that, so many people experience, we can relate to that. And we can, if we're watching somebody talk about a topic like this, we can kind of go on the journey with them, and it's cathartic. It's cathartic for them, and it's cathartic for us too. And because, like I said, you're under this guise of it's a joke, it's funny, it's comedy, you're saying it in a funny way, it gives you kind of a permission to go there and not have it seem like that place that's off limits. So I think that's very fascinating. Another thing that I noticed in these conversations was comedians are so aconventional in the things that they think about and the way that they live their lives. A good example is Robert talking about polyamory. So obviously that's a pretty aconventional idea. That's not something that a lot of people talk a lot about, know a lot about, put into practice in their life, are interested in learning more about or practicing. But I think with comedians, you'll see people who do so many different things as far as their lifestyle, career, relationship choices. It takes a special person to want to do comedy, someone who is inherently going against the grain, and connected with that is the fact that comedy is the art of pointing stuff out that's weird, that's not normal. You don't just go up there and tell jokes that are something anyone could come up with. Like, for example, in comedy, oftentimes people will say that you want to have a joke or a punchline that people can't predict. Misdirection is a common place people will go with comedy. Turning things on their head and looking at things in a very introspective way, in a way that's different from how most people approach it. I know I personally am very much into like philosophies and political systems and things that entrepreneurship is another example, things that are very against the grain of normal society and things that most people don't know about or don't want to learn about or care to include in their mental framework. That's the stuff that's fascinating to me. And I think that it's fascinating too when communicated in the right way, and that's evidenced by some of the best comedians. Like I love Louis C.K. He's always talking about certain political and social issues. A lot of comedians have jokes like that, and I think people have the thirst and hunger for that because revolutionary ideas are inherently attractive, but the normal person isn't going to think in that way. So that's one way I think that comedians are different, just in the way that they're aconventional. They look at things differently than other people. Another point that was of note here for me is I think that every comedian has a little bit of a narcissistic streak, and I don't say it in a negative way. I think narcissism is, when under control, a very positive thing for people to have because it drives you to have big goals and try to achieve things. But every comedian I know, I can definitely speak for myself, has a narcissistic streak, likes to hear themselves talk, is very fond of their own ideas. And I think that that's powerful. Like I said, if that's under control, that's one of the best things you can have. On the flip side of that, if it's out of control, it's one of the worst things you can have. But like a lot of things in life, your narcissism needs to be tempered, and there's a gray area of what's useful narcissism and what's just being too in your own head, too full of yourself. Last point here, like I said, one of the questions that I wanted to ask and get to with people is what got you into comedy? And a lot of the comedians I've talked to have the common theme of, well, I got into comedy because I hit this breaking point. I hit this lowest point, or I hit this point where maybe I was even successful, and then I didn't feel happy, I didn't feel fulfilled. So a lot of times there is an inflection where you get inspired to do comedy because, like Ethan pointed out, he went to jail, and that's when he first got the idea, I want to get on stage and do comedy. For me personally, there was a time when I was about 23 when everything changed. I changed the way I looked at things. I changed the way I thought about what I wanted out of life. And shortly thereafter, I decided to start doing comedy because I stopped seeing it as just something that I enjoy taking in and I think is interesting to watch and pay attention to, as something where I could do that. Why not? Because I sort of just took this approach to life where you can really do anything you want. And that sounds kind of goofy and silly for people to say sometimes because you can kind of take it in the like Tony Robbins-esque way where it sounds goofy and it sounds like, I guess, just not a way that people would really talk or not something that can really be implemented in your life. But a comedian sees that there really is endless possibilities. If you didn't believe that, you wouldn't get on stage and try to make people laugh because that's a crazy thing to do. But often there is an inflection point. You know, you get broken up with. That's a common one. You lose a job and you decide that you want to start pursuing comedy, or you get in some sort of trouble, or again, like hit rock bottom. I know that sobriety is a big thing for a lot of comedians and a way that they get into comedy because they need some sort of outlet. Maybe they need like a endorphin hit or adrenaline rush. So those are just some common themes that I noticed. I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope that you get some value out of this, and I look forward to chatting with anybody who watches this and has something to say about it.
You guys familiar with the term polyamorous?
Yes.
It's two people. Me and my partner, we seek out the relationships outside of our own. So that's what I'm about.
I mean, it is like this, like, very therapeutic in that like whole like hack bit of being like I can't afford therapy, so I do comedy is a real thing. Of being able to be so vulnerable with a crowd and being able to like have them laugh at you in a way that you're controlling it is just so beautiful and so like understanding. It's just amazing to be able to like, instead of being at home bottling these feelings, to actually vomit them in front of people.
She introduced me to that.
So I'm getting back out there, and you know, there's so many dating sites, and I got back on my favorite one called Douglas County Corrections. But like, I have so much wild shit in my phone, I just want to tell people, and that's what draws me to it. I can just hop up there and say some wild shit, and I'm like, he's joking, and then you can look at him like, I'm not fucking joking. Like, this is serious. But,
it's like an avenue for your fucked up thoughts.
Exactly. I will be a very responsible parent. Super responsible, right? My kid will never have to worry about a roof over their head. I know where all the safe haven locations are.
I like doing comedy. I do it quite a bit, as often as I can. And I'm probably never going to be a famous guy. But I do think I want to be as popular as meth. I want to be as popular, if not more popular than methamphetamine. And I almost made that joke about weed, but I need people to need me. Do you understand what I'm saying?
When's the first time you ever decided to try stand-up and why?
Well, dude, this is corny, I feel like, but I got arrested and I was in the booking cell, and this is gonna be cool. Oh, it's just Robert, thank God. And I thought, well, this is gonna fuck things up forever probably, so now's as good a time as any to start.
Does anybody else's mom have a gun?
Do I have a good posture?
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Is this better, or does it look like I'm forcing it?
It looks like you're forcing it.
Fuck.
Let me see.
All right, nobody move. All right, nobody move. Hand me that communion wine. Oh, you think you're so holy, Father? You think you're